Hello students, welcome back to my class. Today I will be discussing one very important aspect from part 1 BA English Honours, and this particular part is from paper 1. The topic of my today's discussion is the importance of university wits in the history of English drama. So, as far as the exam is concerned, this is a very important topic, and all the students are asked to follow this topic very carefully. So, let us begin with the topic importance of university wits. So, there was no necessary connection between plays and literature before 16th century. The earlier dramas, as I have already mentioned in one of my lectures, the origin and development of drama. If you want, you can follow the lecture from the YouTube portal, where I have mentioned that earlier dramas were written and performed only for entertainment or some religious purpose. The growing popularity and diversity of drama, its secularization, and the growth of a class of writers and scholars who had no desire to be in the holy orders, who had no desire to be in the system of the church, they tried to produce a new literary phenomenon. So they have embodied the new kind of phenomenon in history of English literature, that is the rise of the secular professional playwrights. So they wrote drama not only for entertainment but also as a form of serious literature. The group of writers are known as university wits, and those people were young men who had graduated from Oxford and Cambridge universities, and they had no patron to sponsor their literary activities, and they had no desire to enter into the church system or the religious system. Okay, so in order to earn their livelihood, they turned into playwriting, and in doing so, they made the Elizabethan popular drama very literary, because all of them were very much scholarly person. So if you follow the feature of their plays, they had several features in common. They had some kind of fondness for heroic themes, and heroic themes means like they used to deal with the life of great figures like Muhammad or say Tamberlin. The great fullness and variety they had, they used to follow splendid descriptions in their plays. We can find long swelling speeches. It was the speeches were very long and very broad, very exciting speeches, and they used to handle violent incident in their plays. Okay, and they had the fascinations towards emotion, how the emotion was being treated in literature. So all these qualities distinguish their works from the previously written plays. Okay, so the chief aim of these plays were to achieve strong and sounding lines, to create certain magnificent epithets, and also nonetheless powerful declamations. If you follow their plays, you could see that the theme of those plays were mostly tragic in nature, and there is a clear cut lack of real humor which can be observed in those plays. Okay, so let us know who are the people which we term as the university wits. As I have already mentioned, the university wits set the course for later English drama, and in particular paved the way for William Shakespeare. And the group include important writers, important playwrights such as John Lilly, George Peele, Robert Greene, Christopher Marlowe, which is the most prominent figures among the University Wits. Then we have Thomas Nashe and Thomas Lodge. Okay, so we have deliberately excluded the name of Thomas Kidd, who, though closely associated with this kind of literary group, was not a product of the universities. Since Thomas Kidd was not a product of the university, we are actually excluding his name. Though structurally or thematically, his plays are very much related to the writers of the plays written by the university wits. Okay, so let us start with John Lilly. John Lilly is the foremost among the university wits. He is essentially romantic in his plots, and he used to violate the unities of time and place when he takes. He earned a good success with the publication of his prose romance. The important prose romance is Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit. The book is subtitled as The Anatomy of Wit, which is very interesting. And it makes its appeal to the intelligence rather than the emotions or even the conscience. So it was written in a elaborate prose style which came to be known as euphuistic prose style. So this particular prose style, euphuistic prose style, was actually started through this book, Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit. And Lilly's dramatic works are all modeled for a courtly audience. It was actually targeted towards the courtly audience, and he repeated his success. He also wrote another sequel, the second part of the earlier book, Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit. The second part of the book is titled as Euphues and his England. So, in addition to all the realistic charms of Anatomy of Wits, Euphues and his England had two allurements that the fashionable public of the day found irresistible. Okay, in the first place, it was all transparently about themselves. So, as I have already mentioned, this particular play is for the court people, the people in the court of the kings, and the scene being London, the character of highest circle of society, and secondly, the time. I mean, it was for the people, and it was the time period which was actually being expressed through this play. So, Euphues, the Anatomy of Wits, which is often considered as the critics as a brave, righteous, and pious, a book which a man needs to look into. Okay, so he has written several other plays like Sappho and Phao, which is an allegorical play, which obviously the target audience was the court people. So this particular play, Sappho and Phao, was actually dedicated and in order to flatter Queen Elizabeth, it was written. Then another book is there, another play, Galetha, and here Lilly brought the device of the girls dressed as boys. It's a very popular notion in the contemporary Elizabethan plays, and Lilly was the first person who has brought this device. His another play, Endymion, he introduced characterized fairies to English dramas. Okay, he has written several other plays like Alexander and Compaspe, where he gave history a contemporary and typical references. So his plays like Alexander and Compaspe was very much historical. Okay, He has written several other plays like The Woman in the Moon. Okay, and this particular play is written in blank verse. Okay, and another thing is like this particular play, The Woman in the Moon, it's the attitude of this particular play is very much satirical, and the satire is directed against women. Okay, and Lily's Mother Bombi and Midas are also some of the other plays written. Here, uh, here he always used certain mellowed spirit under which seriousness is actually being described. So, after reading Lily's plays, we can understand that he had made that prose as the vehicle of drama, and he has brought certain smoothness and sophistication in comedies, which was not available in the earlier writings. However, his main contribution to English drama includes the establishment of high comedy in the form of drama, and as a court dramatist, he added to the drama the feminine qualities of grace, delicacy, and charm, which held rich promise for the later Elizabethan dramas. So we have to understand that he was a court writer. He used to write to impress the court people. He used to write to impress the queen, and as a result, those essential features used to come in his writings. Okay, let us move to our next playwright, which is Robert Greene. Robert Greene's plays are actually characterized by a craftsman-like plotting. So the plot were like excellent plots, and he used to make a skillful mixture of realistic and native background. So people could connect themselves with the background he was actually referring with. And his another contribution to the plays which he has written was the atmosphere of romance and humor, and he has first created to portray a heroine who is as charming as personality, attractive as a woman, and convincing as a human being. So he has given enough importance to his female protagonists. His most important play is, as I have already mentioned in the PowerPoint, Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay. So this particular play deals with Roger Bacon, and in the subplot the women's attitude and behavior are described. Here his skill is craving a plot with character drawn from different social group. So unlike Lily, who was actually his target audience was only the court people, here Robert Greene has actually tried to draw various incidents and characters from various different social groups, and also use of magic and fairies was a hallmark of his creation. And we can anticipate that Shakespeare's use of the ideas of fairies and magics were also been inspired from Robert Greene. Okay, so he has written several other books, other plays, but those plays are not that good. For example, he has written The Scottish Heroes of James the Fourth. So, as the title might suggest, it is not a historical play, rather it is a serious comedy. And Greene's influence was great on Shakespearean comedies, especially Shakespeare's romantic comedies, which was based much upon the premises and materials, that is the something like the nostalgic charms of the country, and or the woodland setting and the idyllic atmosphere, Uh, and he has also written some other plays, some other prose romance like Pondosto, and which is also the source of Shakespeare's play The Winter's Tale. Then he has written another play called Orlando Furioso, which is based on the story of Ariosto. He has written some other plays like the Alphonsus, the Kings of Aragon, or Pinners of Wakefield. However, despite that, his main contribution to Elizabethan drama remains his representation of women as convincing human being, as I have already mentioned that. In fact, it was Robert Greene who is the first time introduced romantic comedy, which was later perfected by Shakespeare. Okay, so with this, let us move to the next playwright, George Peele. George Peele was, as a dramatist, was both inferior to Lilly and Green, but he has written some important plays. His important plays include The Arrangement of Paris, which is an example of a pastoral comedy. Then, uh, famous one of his famous books named as The Old Wives' Tale, which is a satirical play. Then he has written Edward the First, which is obviously a historical play, and he also wrote The Love of King David and Fair Bethesda, a play which is which has some kind of biblical theme. So, if we study the plays of George Peele, we could see that Peele has took his materials like his co-mates from history, mythology, and from the traditional tales. So he was not an original genius like Lillian Green. He was an inferior writer compared to them, but for the versatility of his themes and refined and graceful treatment of the plots, he deserves a dignified position among the other university wits. Okay, so with this, let us move to Christopher Marlowe. And as I have already mentioned in the introduction portion, Christopher Marlowe is considered as the best among all the university wits writers, and he was, as I mentioned, he was the most striking personality and most impressive dramatist among the university wits. So his verse combines music and majesty, and to some extent we can say his themes fires the Elizabethan imagination. I mean, it's a very imaginistic themes. He had not bent for comedy, and the comic parts found in some of his plays are actually always inferior. He is mostly a tragedian, and the two major contribution of Marlowe to the development of English drama were, first, perfecting the blank verse. He was a master in blank verse, and he was the person who has used the Promethean characters in his plays. Who are the Promethean characters? The characters where the seeds of destruction were planted beneath the characters' heroic doing. Those characters are known as Promethean characters. And as we can see from the plays written by Christopher Marlowe, all the important characters are Promethean characters. He has written several important plays like Tamburlaine the Great, which contains his best blank verse, and the hero of the play was actually influenced by Renaissance, and it was a tragic hero, and though it had some kind of military attitude, the hero was being defeated by time and death. Then we have Dr. Faustus, and of course we have Jew of Malta. Dr. Faustus is one of the most important plays ever written by Marlowe. So here in these two plays, Dr. Faustus and the Jew of Malta, these are respectively men of inordinate ambitions fixed with a trust for power. They had the lust for power and they had inordinate ambitions. Jew of Malta is considered as the famous black comedy of this time, and his another play Edward II, which is very much different from the other plays written by Marlowe. Here the protagonist of the play is King Edward, who is a mentally weak person and has a homosexual relationship with his court person Gaveston, his friend. And in this play, Marlowe presented a great equilibrium with the surrounding and the plot, and it was a tragedy written by Marlowe. Another inferior play written by Marlowe is The Tragedy of Dido, Queen of Carthage. And this play was co-written with Thomas Nashe, and his Massacre of Paris, which I have mentioned here, is an unfinished tragedy. So, if we follow all the tragedies written by Marlowe, we can see he has given a new concept of romantic tragedy, where the tragic fall of the hero is brought about by some basic human flaw. Okay, in Aristotle term, we call it hamartia, the error of judgment. Okay, and in their own characters, we can find this kind of flaws, and he, as I have already mentioned, he has perfected the concept of blank verse. Okay, and it was very smooth, and blank verse was his strength. Okay, then Marlowe's another contribution is that he took Elizabethan drama to a great height, and like before Shakespeare, no one was been able to reach that height which Marlowe has taken the English theatre. Okay, and this is the most perfect vehicle for dramatic expression, and he has already I have been mentioning that blank verse was the most important tools before all these lyrical writings and all. So he has given immense importance to blank verse. So we can readily say that Marlowe has paved the path for Shakespeare to a large extent. Next, we will discuss two inferior university wits, Thomas Lodge and Thomas Nashe. Thomas Lodge wrote one famous book, The Wounds of Civil War, which is based on early treatments of Roman history. And he has also written another play, A Looking Glass for London and England, which was an incomplete work. Then we have Thomas Nashe, who has solo written that particular book, Summer's Last Testament, and which is an allegorical play about sessions, which however this play was not that good compared to the other plays written by all university wits. Okay, so to conclude, we can say that university wits played a decisive role in the rather chaotic atmosphere in the last 16th century English theatre. So earlier it was utter chaos, and the university wits had a great role to direct it to a proper channel, you can say. Then certain comic themes and devices are used by Lilly and Green, I have already mentioned, and they have contributed like heroine disguised as boys, then use of pastoral settings, then use of magics and fairies, and use of witty prose style. Okay, similarly romantic conception of tragedy and use of highly effective blank verse, which was mostly used by Christopher Marlowe, was also being used in various plays written by University West, and we can say fairly say that University West actually paved the path for Shakespeare and other Elizabethan contemporary playwrights. Thank you.